I will say we've got 3 different groups going this evening, so I unfortunately do have to kind of enforce the clock tonight, so that yeah, we'll just say we got to do that just to make sure that everybody gets in and we don't rush that last group especially. So I will give you a heads up at 40 minutes. You do not need to take all 45, but it's for you. All right. And with that, gentlemen, the
All
law
right.
firm of Kessie, Hughes and Alexander, go ahead.
So we're going to talk about data in the classroom, but one thing we wanted to know is if you guys had the ability to pick a superpower, what would it be? And if you want to put it in the chat, or if you just want to speak up since there's just a few of us, what would your superpower be? Ability to fly, okay. Fly.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Dishwasher stacking, okay. Well, there's all kinds. I would like to be that invisible guy. I'd like to see the things that go on behind the scenes sometimes. But next slide. What if you were a superhero and didn't use your powers? Next slide. Or just Superman taking a nap. Can teaching with data be like a superpower, or is it just kind of like a tool that we use, like Batman on our tool belt, to get us out of, get us more prep time, get us out of sticky situations with behavioral or stuff like that? Next slide.
I don't know what my clicker is not clicking.
Me, I'm Batman. I use my utility belt all the time. So, discussion prompt. Whoop, now he's really clicking away. All right. So, are we like Batman, or do we use our superpowers? Next slide. So, as a group, in the group chat, we would like to know, is data a superpower or just kind of a useful tool to save your classroom from the clutches of boredom or the clutches of chaos at times? In the group chat, post some types of data that you see in your classroom that maybe you can use. Just some ideas. Maybe I could use some of those superpowers now about reading minds. Trends in AI, awesome. Visual data, yep, absolutely. These are all things that are definitely stuff that we can use, and we can accentuate our lesson plans for sure. Statistics to show how important a lesson in the real world might be. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so these are all pieces of data, and there's really 4 different types of data that we use. Two of the types we know every day. We realize it every day. We use them every day. And then there's 2 other types that maybe we don't always think of. Next slide. So we have summative data, formative data, and behavioral data, and qualitative data. Summative and formative, we use all the time. Test scores, whether or not we're using engagement methods with students, we get those all the time. But maybe we don't always think about the behavioral data that we get or the qualitative data that we get from our classrooms. So we're going to discuss each one of these kind of quickly. The first 2 I'm going to go through really fast because we should be fairly familiar with these. And then Lescott and Michael are going to discuss behavioral and qualitative. Next slide, please. So our summative data is examples of kind of like the summation of what we've taught, our test scores, the end of the day tests, our research papers, our projects. If we're doing a woodworking class, you can evaluate the table that they built, the final. So those types of things are always utilized. And next slide. They're important because they measure mastery, how you've improved on the skill, how you've gotten your students from point A to point B. It gives great accountability, so you know if your students are on task or not on task. And it informs like future areas of instruction where maybe you could make this better by doing this, or maybe you could cut this out because it didn't work well and try something different. And your summative, it gives the kids the achievement goal. Did I get the A? Did I not get the A? It gives them something tangible that they can actually hold on to. Okay, next slide. So how would we turn summative data into a superpower? Well, it's kind of like the X-ray vision that Superman has in learning. You get to see what your lessons have brought out in your students by seeing the final product. So you've seen how things have gone, how your lesson worked, and maybe if they're doing an auto detailing lesson, whether or not they have any buffer marks, whether or not everything lines up. Did they clean up after themselves? Is there any wax left behind? That kind of thing. So it gives you the superpower to know and the X-ray vision to know whether or not they've learned the actual skill that you're teaching. Okay. Next slide. We're going to move on to formative data. It's the ongoing real-time, just the stuff that you do in the classroom every day when you're walking around seeing whether or not they're doing their assignment, whether or not they're on TikTok. You're there, you're visible, you're watching what they're doing and how they're reacting and how they're interacting with each other. Next slide. So some examples of formative data are like your exit tickets, where you're asking, hey, what did you learn today? What's new? What did you get out of what we're doing? And it gives an open response so that they can respond and tell you kind of in detail. Sometimes they're not so detail oriented. We know that, but it gives them the opportunity to be open. Your classroom observations, what you see when you walk around, that data is so important. And we're going to get on, I know both Michael and Lescott are going to talk about that a little bit too. And then it'll also, you can see student self-assessments and the homework and class assignments. So you get to see whether or not they understand, whether or not they have progressed through the lesson, whether or not they have understood it by how they're getting their homework done. Or sometimes you'll notice if they've got their head down and they're all flumped, whether or not they're even engaged to do the homework. Next slide, please. So why is formative data important? It's for pacing. It's for figuring out if your lesson works, changing it, adapting, keep what works, thrive on your successes and learn from your failures. Move on, figure out and be adaptive. It's constant improvement on your lessons, and the students also pick up on that too. They realize that you're a real person. Next slide. So I have included in your file, there is a handout about formative data can be a superpower. It's similar to the slide I did with Superman. If you want to look at the handout, there are 4 different things that I did kind of fall down the rabbit hole of the superhero thing, and I may have played it a little too far, but all right. There's 4 different things in the group chat. I would like you to put an idea of one of the 4 things. So we have the detective mode, we have the grappling hook, we have the bat signal, the batarang. I want you to kind of look at those and see if one of those is something that you do use in your classroom. Just put it in the group chat. And if anybody has a story they want to share that would kind of relate to one of those, that would be cool too. So one of the things that I liked was the grappling hook idea, the using data to kind of pull students that are struggling. You could look and see what they're doing, whether or not they're getting their homework done, whether or not their test scores are being active, or whether or not they're actually showing their true knowledge. You can use this data to kind of pull them out of where they're at and kind of find the areas of certain assistance you can give them. Anybody else got one? Maybe they're taking a little time to get to the actual handout. Okay, so you think the same thing? Okay. Chris is on the same page as me. Anti-shark spray, love it. Yes, using the bat signal as self-reflection for sure. It kind of throws that flare up in the air of whether or not they need help too. I mean, it's kind of cool. All right, next slide, please. So we are now going to talk about behavioral data, and this I'm going to yield the floor to Les Scott, and he's going to take over for us.
All right. Hi, everybody. Behavioral data. We will explore the importance of understanding behavioral data in our classroom. Before we move on, what exactly is behavioral data? Anybody?
I got one. The pure silence that we have right now, that's behavioral data.
It certainly is. I think we deal with that every day in the classroom.
Yes.
We have a bunch of that all the time. You know, that silence.
Maybe
All
some
right,
heads are down napping on their chairs.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Somebody who says that. Somebody says watching how the students. Okay, along the same lines as Melanie. Yes. Watching how the students interact with each other in class, or their performance in class. Oh yeah, that's along the line that we are going on. All right. So based on our research, we kind of just break it down slightly, where we have a kind of semi-formal type of outline of what it is. So we have like behavioral data is information about how students learn and interact in the classroom, just as it was said here. Okay. And it normally will include things like how often a student participate in the class, or how much time a student spend on homework or assignment. It can also show which learning method help a student understand best. So at my school, we did a lot of this, trying to figure out how the student learn the best, because we are going through some academic reformation at this point in time. So we are doing different type of things. So I will say that this class, and well, as a matter of fact, all my classes before, they all aligned with my whole teaching, because we are doing a lot of different type of stuff, just as we are learning all the different courses here and all different things. So this is sort of like familiar to me, right? Another behavior that we can look at is how often a student asks for help. Because there may be students in your class that sits there all the time and they are asking for help. But when you ask, are you getting this? They said yes. So you normally have to put on that extra time to go to them, to see exactly what they're doing, try to prove them to get back to you. So, you're getting that type of behavior from them, so you got to change the behavior in order to get ahead. All right. So teachers can use this type of data to understand students' habits and improve on their learning experience. All right. We have some types of behavior, although so behavior can also be broken down, and some of it may overlap to what Dwayne has gone through. So like some types is class participation, right? So you as a teacher, you can now track how often a student answer or how often they ask a question. Okay, like the other one is like homework and assignment. Checking if work is completed on time or how well the student understand the material. So that will give you the opportunity to go back and reteach or move on depending on the mode of the class at a point in time. Okay, so the third one is like is for your quiz and your test performance. So seeing pattern in mistakes to help you adjust your teaching method. So this is some of the things that you will have to do when you do your quizzes, when you do your tests. You know, it's similar to your homework and your assignments because these are normally information or data that is collected. No matter whether you want to collect it or not, it's collected there. So you can use these to help you move along with your class for improvements. Okay. The next thing you can look at is study habits. You can observe whether students prefer to work alone in groups or using some digital type tools to get them go ahead. Because now you can merge them. If students prefer to work alone and they are getting it, it's best that you leave them, to work on their own. If students like to work in groups and they're not getting it, then now you have to look at the group that they prefer too, because you give them all the options to work on their own. But if they don't want to work along with a group, because I have some students will just go along with the group because the group is performing, but they are the silent partner in the group and they're not doing anything. So you gotta know where to put them, where to have them work so you get the most out of them, right? And then the use of digital tools, we got to be careful with that, and I think Professor Karen has been talking about the use of digital tools that will get us. So we can use digital tools that will do the work for us, or we could use digital tools as a tool to get us to where we want to be, right? Because like, for instance, in my class, I have digital tools that do the same thing as manual tools, like for my design portfolio. So I can have students learn how to design using their hands so that the image will come directly from their brain, or they use a digital tool that have a lot of assistance for them. So that help them, develop their brain even more. Okay. And the next thing is how we're going to use this. How can teachers use that, right? It can help teachers adjust lesson based on what works best for the students, not necessarily the teacher. It's the student, because the students we are teaching and trying to develop them. Okay, we can also use the student understanding of their own learning styles and improve their study habits, because I have students who prefer to just grab all the notes. So give me the notes. I will read it. I will figure it out. The other says that, oh, I don't like to read. So they now want you to go along with them, and you got to give them all the different ways in order to get them together, right? The other thing, how we can use it is you can get the school to offer extra help for students who need it, like additional tutorial, Also, you have where you have the intervention specialist that will come into your classroom. So you got to beef that up, because I also had a student in my class. He has his language is different. So he's from another country and he is having trouble with the comprehension. And we had to get the ELL teacher to come in there on a more regular basis, because the ELL teacher will just pass in and to see how they're going, but then he needed more help. So we have to use our observation. We have to use our behavioral data to see how things go. Okay. Why is behavioral data important? Why do we think behavioral data is important in the classroom? And how can it help both teachers and students? So for me, and my group, what we understood is that behavioral data helps make learning better for everyone, not only the student. Because once you have students that can learn after a few times they try and they can now function on their own, that makes your job easier as a teacher, right? So in cases like this, it can show the teachers which topics students struggle with the most. It can also help students recognize their strengths and weaknesses, because you are there guiding them to tell them where they are weak, where they are strong, so they can now adjust themselves to get the product down. All right, this can also allow the school to create better learning plans for the different type of learners. Okay, you can also improve group work by parent student based on how they learn best, because it has a number of people who learn certain ways, so you can put them together so they can get it done quicker. Okay, and the next thing I have here is how can behavior data evolve into a superpower? Meaning, actually.
So once again, we're going to have you guys look at the handout about turning data into a superpower using Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. Okay,
All
and
right.
pick one of the four and contribute to the group chat on one of these four methods that maybe you use or maybe you thought was kind of cool and didn't think of. Give it a few minutes to look at it. So the lasso of truth kind of just gives you the concept of the behavioral data in the classroom, how kids are acting in the classroom, gives you the real true measure of what you're doing and if it's working or if it's not working or where you need to tweak things. Oh, Katie, the handout is in the it's in the spreadsheet for the topics. And I think it's discussion 5. I think that was where you put the spreadsheet link.
It's in the colleague connection module.
Okay.
I can throw the link.
Jonathan just posted it into the chat.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm looking at it now.
Since I try not to say too much, but when in these sessions, but this is excellent, and I don't want there to be too much dead space. But the superpower number 4, helping students self-reflect and improve, that was something that I started a couple years into my teaching, where like they were building their own professional development plan and identifying their strengths and weaknesses. And it wasn't like, here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. It was, okay, these are your weaknesses. What are you going to do about it? And then I assigned them accountability partners, and they would just kind of meet once a week. Hey, did you get your homework done? Did you do these kinds of things? Are you doing the things that they said they were going to do? So, yeah, I mean, it worked okay, but it did put the onus back on them. Like, hey, you said you were gonna try to get a B this quarter, and this is where you are. And at least from that perspective, they were aware. Some of my struggling students were aware of their progress, whereas before, like, we get to the end of the quarter and it was like, oh, they didn't even know. It's like, how do you not know? But so I think there's some validity in that. I wish I would have tailored it a little bit differently, but it was still a good exercise.
I did something similar when I was creating resumes, and the kids were trying to figure out what their talents are. And they're like, I don't have a talent. I don't have a talent. So I made them get in groups of threes and have them tell each other what their talents were. And it was kind of really cool. And it really opened up things and opened up their eyes. And they were able to actually come up with a decent resume idea for that section from that. So kind of like the self-reflect, I guess it would be a guided self-reflection through the group.
Yeah, and that also helped them take charge of their own learning, because when we track this kind of behavior, and you let them know, so they will adjust accordingly. All right. Right. So by observing students' learning habits, teachers can help them become better problem solvers and more independent learners. Okay. So these are some of the ways of using data in the classroom that can help us improve our instructions. All right. So next I have Michael will come in with qualitative data, help us along the way.
All right. So what is qualitative data? It's going to focus on why and how rather than using numbers and statistics. So these are going to be your writing assignments and your follow-ups to see at the end of the week if they grasped what we did through the week. Non-numerical. So I gotta move this. So some different different types here. You've got student behavior, like I was just saying, your self-reflections, interactions you have with your students. You can use this to adjust your teaching strategies, understand, are they confident in what you're telling them? If you're going over the same thing day after day and they're still making the same mistakes, you're collecting data right there. You're not writing it down, but you're noticing the pattern there that they're not getting the content. At that point, you need to adjust how you're teaching and, find a solution that works best for that student. So this is important. It gives you a deeper insight on, the students' learning, their thought processes, their emotions. Do you have a student that's sleeping every day and not participating, but maybe they're doing well elsewhere? So that's where the differentiation comes into play. Maybe hearing it for them doesn't work, but going to the lab and doing it, maybe that's where it sets in for them. Encourage them to talk to you, building those relationships. The best thing you can do right off the bat with students is build a solid, foundation and relationship with these kids. You don't necessarily want to be friends, but you need that relationship so they trust you, so they can come to you when they need help. And that kind of ties in with this emotional learning as well. So best practices, observing regularly. I'm observing all the time. I have a lab where students can get hurt, in half a second. So I'm constantly watching them and, making sure they're following safety. That comes into, some of this observation, keeping track of that, who's wearing their PPE, who's not wearing their PPE. Writing assignments, students in my lab do a weekly timesheet, and they're keeping track of what they're doing every day. They're writing that down. They're writing down the amount of time they spend on it. And then at the end of the week, before they turn it in, at the bottom, It is, what did I learn this week? What are my goals for next week? So there's some, the self-reflection. And then I take those and I read over them and I use whatever they write down to kind of put myself in check. Where do they need help? Where are they excelling? And then I even go as far as, well, maybe this student can help this student understand better than I can explain it. So if we look at this, where's that? The handout again on the third page. How can we turn qualitative data into a superpower? So you've got instant application to student needs, predicting learning gaps before they happen, speeding up differentiation and personalization, and building stronger teacher-student connections.
Well, one of the things that I like to use is the student-teacher connection part. And I think I've said this before. One of the reasons that I got into teaching was a simple phrase. Students don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I think that that is very true. If they think you're just going through the motions, you're going to lose them. They don't care. So you need to make that connection. The connection is important. So and like Michael said, you don't need to be best friends, but you need to make a connection so that they know that you are that person they can come to if they need help, if there's outside stuff. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that is something too that the students look like they get all upset when a substitute gotta come in, because they will tell me, hey, he don't know what you know, or she don't know what you know, so how can he help us and stuff like that. So as you said, the connection is always there, because they kind of get accustomed to you, and they don't want anybody else to be in there. They prefer I give them work and don't let anybody come in the classroom. All right, so that's it for the qualitative data. Well, how much time we have again? We have about what, 7 minutes again?
I think we got about 12.
About 12?
Oh.
Yes, you have 12 minutes.
Okay. All right. So then we have a little collaborative activity. So let's see if we can wrap this up in less than that 12 minutes that we have. All right. So Professor Karen, can you assist us in this, please?
Yes, hold on. So do you all three want to be in separate rooms with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. So I could read I could read out what the activity is about before they go into the rooms.
Yep, go ahead.
So we're gonna do a breakout room engagement discussion. So for this activity, we will break into 3 groups to analyze real world scenarios. So we have 3 scenarios with different bit of information about data and stuff, and we just want you guys to discuss it, and then we're gonna just swing back to the end to discuss it together, right? So each group will receive one of the scenario sheet outlining the common challenge faced in education. Your task is to discuss the situation, identify key issues, and brainstorm a little for some possible solutions. Okay, so we should take about 5 minutes to do this, and then we'll just swing back to get it done. Right. So one of us will be present to kind of like observe and to listen to hear how we're going. So when we come back, we could be able to tie it in all together. Okay. All right. So this is a great opportunity for us to collaborate and share insights and learn from each other's experience. So let's get started.
Okay, so I think I lost Damon, but I've got you guys in rooms and they're opening them now. How long did you want in your rooms?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay?
Hey, I'm still here. Can you see me?
Yeah, I don't know why. Um,
I can only see
strange.
you now.
Yeah, they've all gone to a room. Uh, are you, man, I don't know why. It just says I can't assign you to a room.
Hmm.
I don't know why. So, yeah, bummer. I don't know why. She'll just stare at me for 5 minutes. You're on your computer too. You're not like on your cell phone, right?
Nope, on laptop,
Yeah, I don't
school
know.
computer.
Yeah, I don't know. There's always something.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll give me time to look over my stuff for in a
There
few
you
minutes.
go. Yeah, take your time there. Do you want to go next?
Yes, if I could, please.
Sure. Okay. Hey,
Oh, we
Brian, they're
sat.
in.
Oh,
There, they're coming back.
Ah, there we
All
go.
right. Oh,
There we
okay.
go.
Hey, we picked up a
So,
few more
We're
people.
back.
hey, look at that. We brought in some strays.
Brian's on vacation, looks like.
All right, you guys have 5 minutes left.
Okay. All right. I can start. Well, I had one person in my group. That's Katie, and we took a while to get the document, but we started discussing when we got pulled out. So our situation in scenario one, because we choose scenario one, right, is where in Chef Martinez's 12th grade culinary art class, the student consistently show high level of engagement during cooking demonstrations and the group kitchen activities. However, their performance on weekly practical exam is consistently below average. Okay, so the question was, how can Chef Martinez bridge the gap between high classroom engagement and low practical exam performance? And what right away, as soon as I read the question, Katie says self-reflection. So that's something that can help, right? That can help you reflect on what is not being done and what is supposed to be done. All right. But we get called out of the room. So that's as far as we reach with that one.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else?
Michael, which one did you do?
We did scenario 2. And the short version of that is the student's absent a lot. He's falling behind. And we came up with a weekly check-in.
Okay, perfect.
Check in, see what the kid has going on at home. Maybe there's a reason why he's absent. That those can all correspond with why they're falling behind.
All right. We did scenario number 3. It was a computer programming class that the teacher was getting excellent test scores, but getting zero creativity, zero enthusiasm. And one of the things that we came up with was that maybe the teacher isn't actually teaching real world applications. Maybe she wasn't using collaborative efforts. So using that and maybe doing an I do, we do, you do type scenario would increase the creativity by her showing the creativity in the classroom and the real world applications. So I know that we only have like 2 minutes left. So we would like to do an exit ticket in the chat. If you could just give us an idea of some new data application that you learned from this presentation and put it in the group chat for us, that would be awesome. Yeah, self-reflecting is absolutely something that should definitely be brought out in all of our classes for sure.
As Jonathan said, knowing the actual terminology for some of the things that I do on a daily basis, and also having a solid understanding of qualitative data and how to use it. Exactly. Yeah. So that's something that we all can look into to help us with our data, because I understand that data is go a long way.
Yeah, it's awesome that, you know, some of the things we already do in class, we just don't realize that there's a name associated with it or a pattern or a trend or something. So it's kind of cool to see that brought out, and it definitely reinforces you. Like, oh wow, I do that. I just didn't know that that was a thing. Okay, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right. So we have data is not just looking at numbers. Exactly. It also involves the observation, because those numbers can tell you one thing, but the observation can tell you something different. You know, so when you put the both of them together, we can do wonders with it.
And not all students are good test takers either. So you have to use some of those, you know, qualitative and behavioral data collections, because the test scores don't always give you the most accurate representation of that exact student.
Right. Exactly. All righty. So if there are not any more exit
Questions
tickets
or
coming up,
comments?
or questions or comments, we want to thank you all for attending class today. Okay.
Amen.
All right.
Double
Good.
amen.
It would have been so hard to do this without having anybody here. Thank you all.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's my final thought on this too. All of these, you guys got a bunch of different assessment and data point ideas tonight. Now, we tend to be really good at doing the observations. We tend to be pretty good at doing the self-reflections, but do we capture that data in a meaningful way? Okay. So Michael talked about like his formal observation that he had yesterday or this week, right? So you can use that qualitative data, those behavior logs, all of those types of data points in order to talk to your administrator and talk about how you're differentiating based on these data points. But you have to collect the data points. So I know Jonathan's great at spreadsheets. Like if you need help with spreadsheets, reach out to Jonathan or reach out to me or Kessie or whoever, but you have to like figure out like how you're going to collect that data and then use it as well. Okay. And beyond
Yes.
what you said is good, absolutely wonderful. But I think we sometimes short ourselves in the fact that we're like not proving it to our administrators when you're doing the work. So please make sure that you're capturing that information, sharing it, and then of course you're differentiating it. But like when you go to do your formal observation, say, yeah, these are my tier 1, 2 students. These are my tier 2 students. 3, how did you come up with those different tiers? Well, it's a combination of all these different data points, right? And interest levels could be a part of that. You know, if you got a kid dumped into your class, okay, you hope he performs as well as the ringleader of your class, but may not, right? So how are you going to differentiate for that kid? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, it does.
All right. So capture that information, love spreadsheets, figure out how you can do some stuff with that. And then, you know, it's semester quarter by quarter, go back and see, have you made progress with this kid? Right? Are they showing growth? Maybe that growth means they got to B this quarter and last quarter they got to C. Amen. Hallelujah to that, right? Because they show growth. Not everybody's going to get 100% in your class. All right. Off the soapbox. Okay. Please do that.
All right.
It's
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Very good. Very, very good. I really liked how you guys took that approach of explaining the assessment types and the data points, and then how we actually can go do that. Excellent job. I appreciate you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Damon is next. Is that okay, Jonathan and Stephen? Okay. Who's that cutie pie? Oh, that's your grandson, right, Brian? He's always our guest
sorry.
student. No, do never apologize to me. I am foremost a mother. I am always going to be a mom first. Probably not the smartest thing for me to say, but I love it. All right. So Damon, you can go ahead and share your screen. Do you know how to do that?
I think so. We'll see here.
Okay. Just don't hit the big red leave button, but it's the button right next to Leave. I
Yep.
don't know why they put it right next to leave. There we go. And just like the first groups, all the information is linked in the spreadsheet. So yeah. And whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer. I would say for the sake of getting through all the groups this evening, that if you need to use a restroom or what have you, just go do that. We're not going to necessarily take a break. And Damon, I'll give you a 5 minutes heads up when you got 5 minutes left. Cool.
I should be good. All right.
All right.
All right. Go ahead whenever you
You're
ready to get
good.
started. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey guys, I'm Damon. Thanks for joining tonight. I'm going to, well, first I want to apologize if I lose my voice tonight. I've been having some sinus issues, so if I sound a little goofy, that's probably a little bit why. Also, I'm going to try not to bore you guys with a bunch of content tonight. The first group of guys did great, and I know you have someone after me that's going to be talking about similar stuff. So try not to give you all the same stuff for an hour and a half or whatever. I tried to base a lot of mine a little bit more for career tech, if possible, so it wasn't just, basic lesson plan development. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. So lesson plan development for career tech teachers is what we're going to be talking about this evening. Here's kind of our agenda for what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to talk about, introduction to lesson planning, some components of an effective lesson plan, aligning objectives with standards, structuring a lesson plan, and then our conclusion Q&A. I also have a worksheet. I know you guys probably don't want to do it because you've done enough work, but I have a worksheet for us to do, as well as a little test at the end that's easy. It'll take you a couple minutes probably to do. So first of all, our learning objectives for today. Hopefully by the end of this, you guys will understand the components of an effective lesson plan. We should be able to align objectives with career tech standards, develop structured lesson plans for career tech classrooms, and enhance student engagement and learning outcomes. So if you guys are able to get to, whoever's still with us, if you guys are able to get to the spreadsheet page, on there should be a link to my worksheet. If you're able to pull that up, it should be in Google Forms format. I'll give everybody a couple minutes to see if they can find that and pull that up. Melanie got it. Good. Does anybody have any problems finding it or getting to it? All right, so the first thing that I want to do is, while I'm talking today, throughout this lesson, I want you guys to kind of follow along with that worksheet. Any questions you see in there, as we're following along, you can answer those questions. So work on that as I'm speaking. But the first thing I actually want to do is have you guys do some breakout groups. So Melanie, I'll need you to assist with that. And before we get into those breakout groups, I want you guys to discuss why you think lesson planning is important. And that's in all teaching aspects, right? Mostly in career tech because that's what we are. But why do you guys think lesson planning is important? So I want you guys to get in your groups, whoever's still left with us, and take 5 minutes or so and kind of discuss that, see who can come up with some good answers for us, okay?
Okay, so rooms should be open, right? You're not moving though. There they go. Now, Damon, the only thing I can think of, do you want to pop in there?
No, I don't need to. I'll wait till they're done
Okay.
and then I'll have them talk with me.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm like,
'Cause
maybe you could I don't know if log back in, but I don't want to stress, You out.
I don't
Okay.
think it's gonna let me again, so or let me get into the rooms. If you didn't do it before, I would assume. Does it give you the option to put me in?
No, like it,
Yeah.
it has you like your name grayed out. So I'm not sure what's
Huh.
going on there.
I wonder if it's a setting or something in here that has to be turned on. A privacy setting or anything?
For your laptop, it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's through the school, so unless he has something blocked with that, I don't know, our IT guy.
It
But
says
I
the
was
post.
in
Yeah.
the last meeting that I was in that we had, you were able to put me in a breakout room, so
Hmm.
I don't know.
Same machine and everything.
What's that?
Same machine.
Yep, save laptop.
It's
Yeah, it's not on my
possible.
phone, I promise. My phone's here.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's possible that. Oh, I gotta watch the time though. You wanted them 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes is good.
It is possible that like it says external next to your name. So like it looks like maybe you came in through your school account as opposed to your Kent account. So
Oh, okay.
that might be it, but
Yeah, I wonder if it has me logged in through my Career Center account, but not
yeah,
Kent.
and so then that might be where the external breakdown is there a little bit.
Okay.
Don't let me. Okay, so what time do they go in there? Okay, I'll give them like 3 more minutes.
Yeah, that's plenty.
What's the name of your dog again in your classroom?
Oh, Hunter.
Hunter. How's Hunter doing?
Oh, he's doing great. Yeah, he's doing great.
He's a
He
great
loves going
dog.
to school.
Like who wouldn't?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, he loves it there. He gets a lot of attention.
Oh, I
So,
bet. He's a
I
good
have
boy.
I have a training dog in here with me. I don't know if you can see it laying on place down there.
I can only see like a little orange-ish.
Yeah,
I
it
see
might
the
be blurred
bed.
out, but
Yeah.
that's one of my other side jobs is I train pet dogs. So, um, he's just laying down there on place.
Aw. We got our dog from the correctional facility up in it's up on the east side, like I don't know, like on the far east side of the state.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
and
I think I
she
remember you telling me before they had
yeah,
that inmate program
yeah. And she's
that trained it. That's
amazing.
really cool.
It is so cool. And
Yeah,
she
that's
was
awesome.
so easy to transition from home.
Yeah,
Now she's laying at my feet like
yeah, it makes your life
dead
a
to the
lot
world.
easier.
Yes, it does. All right. 1 more minute here. Where was that place? I don't know. I was just happy that I got her and got out of there.
Oh,
I don't want
you
to be
had to
on the
actually
other
go to
side.
the prison and get it.
Yeah, we had to go to the prison. It was like a like minimal security prison.
Yeah.
But yeah, we walked up there and got her.
Hmm.
All right.
Bring everybody back in.
Yeah, I'll give him a 30-second warning.
Can you still see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I get impatient. I'm closing them out.
All right. For my group, I'm going to save that question for when Jonathan and I are teaching.
All right. Is everybody back with us? All right. So, you guys can either talk out loud, say out loud, or type in the chat box, whatever you'd prefer. What was some of the answers we were getting in your guys' groups there? Why is lesson planning important?
We talked about focusing the message a little bit, keeping on task. That was one point that I thought was common.
Good.
Right.
Time management.
Time management, good.
We talked about how it kind of holds you accountable and it helps you have a plan when you go in there and make sure that you're doing all of the things that we are learning about in these classes.
Good. I bet Melanie likes that answer.
Yes. She's giving the thumbs up.
All right, good. Good job. Yeah. We're gonna discuss, parts of a lot of those answers here in a little bit. Before we move on, any other answers?
I have one that Katie and I, we discuss, where you should have continuity, because if you, tomorrow class, what would you discuss in tomorrow class? Because you have no reflection, because you didn't have a lesson plan. So you can't go back to anything specific. You may be able to remind the students about something, but it may not be anything that is documented. So how can you not have a lesson plan? How can you give assessments? How can you do quizzes? Or whatever, all those things, because you didn't have a plan for that. So you're gonna just go into class and say, hey, you do anything you want to do. You will only get 5 to 10 minutes out of the class, and after that is chaos.
Right. Good. Perfect. Great
Yeah.
answer. I was waiting for somebody to come back and say lesson planning is not important, but I'm glad that none of you said that. So I figured that'd be Mr. Hughes there that would come back and say that one.
We can say that. We in Melanie class.
I'll say that
she's
after
right
the
here,
meeting.
so we can say that.
All right. All right. All right. So great. Lesson planning is very important. So why is lesson planning important? Well, first of all, lesson planning ensures alignment with industry standards by incorporating relevant skills, knowledge, and practices that reflect real world expectations. This, helps prepare your students for their chosen careers, right? So whenever you're talking about aligning with your industry standards, an easy way to do that is, collaboration with, your other industry partners. Make sure your curriculum is, up to date, current. So that way you are actually preparing your students for what they could be going into, right? So second thing, organizes content for effective delivery by structuring information in a more logical way that builds understanding of the topic you are teaching. So several of you kind of mentioned stuff that's related to this. Basically what that's saying is that, you're breaking up those more complex topics into more manageable steps. Kind of starting with those foundational topics or those foundational concepts before you move on to those more kind of advanced skills, right? Whenever you're talking about lesson plans, you're not going to just start out right from the most advanced stuff. You're going to get those foundational skills first before you move on to that much harder stuff. And third, so it engages students with relevant real world scenarios by incorporating activities that stimulate workplace experiences. Basically, you want to design your lessons that mirror, those industry challenges. You want students to be able to apply their knowledge in more meaningful ways. So, in my criminal justice class, a way for them to do that would be participating in those mock trials or crime scene investigations or role playing with suspect interviews. Those scenarios can help reinforce, technical concepts. They can help, kind of build those problem solving skills, communication, and decision making abilities, which obviously are all very essential. And then, as well as all of that, you kind of are helping students see the value in, what they are learning, right? If your students aren't seeing the value in what they're learning, then they're not going to want to learn it, right? I think I lost my slideshow there. Sure what happened.
We still see it.
Oh, you do still see it?
Mhm.
Okay. For some reason, I lost everybody that was showing up.
Now we see components of an effective lesson plan.
So
Oh, now we're
there.
back. Yeah.
All right. So, and the last thing, it evaluates student progress and understanding by incorporating assessments that measure both knowledge and skill development. What this means is that, when you have an effective lesson plan, you have a lesson plan that is kind of a mixture of formative assessments and summative assessments, which other groups have talked about already today, or the last group already talked about. You have those formative assessments that are more like, your classroom discussions, hands-on activities, all those things that kind of provide you with that immediate feedback. Versus that summative assessment, which is more like that, that test or, that project or skill demonstration, something that they can kind of showcase, that skill or something that they learned, by aligning, these assessments with your learning objectives in your lesson plan, it can help you track your student growth, help you identify any areas of improvement, and then help you figure out if you need to change anything in your lesson plans for next time, or meet any certain kind of individual needs or individual student needs, right? All right, so next I want to talk about the components of an effective lesson plan. And I want to make sure everybody is still able to get that worksheet pulled up. As we go along throughout this lesson, you'll be able to fill out that worksheet. So components of an effective lesson plan, and we're going to go over these each individually. Right here, I have 6 different components of a lesson plan. That's not saying that this has to be the only 6 in your lesson plan, but these are 6 very important that you should have in your lesson plans. Number 1, learning objectives. Number 2, materials and resources. Number 3, introduction or your hook. Number 4, instructional procedures. Number 5, assessment and evaluation. Number 6, closure and reflection. All right, so number 1, learning objectives. So you want your learning objectives in your lesson plan to define clear, measurable, or specific goals for the lesson that you are doing. It's important for you to use, like action verbs that are like the word demonstrate, analyze, construct. You want your learning objectives to align with your career tech standards or your certifications. A simple kind of learning objective, an example here would be students will demonstrate safe welding techniques. That's just kind of a more simple learning objective there. Number 2, materials and resources. In your lesson plans, you want to list all necessary tools, equipment, and materials that you're going to use throughout that lesson. It's very important that you list everything that you're going to need. That's mostly for future reference. If you maybe didn't use something that you thought you were going to need, or maybe next time you are going to need something that you didn't have last time, right? You want to include multimedia resources like videos, presentations. Consider your industry standard tools or technology that is in your program or your field. Some examples of those would be like safety goggles. This is an example for welding, your welding machine, or an instructional video, right? Number 3, your introduction or your hook. This is something that I think is very important. You want to be able to capture your students' interest from the very start of your lesson. If you don't capture their interest from the beginning, it could be really hard to keep them engaged, or really hard to kind of bring them back at a later point, right? So you want to start off by getting them interested in whatever your topic is. Yeah, you're not always going to get every student interested in everything you talk about or teach them. But if you can get them interested from the start, that's always the best. It's good if you can relate the topic to some sort of real world application, especially being in career tech. We are getting these students ready for the real world, whatever job they choose. You can use anecdotes, questions, or multimedia for engagement. One thing that I do with pretty much all of my lessons, when I start a lesson in criminal justice, is I kind of discuss some sort of real life scenario that's related to our topic. So, for example, if I'm talking about use of force in criminal justice, I'll give the kids a real story that of a time that I had to use force on a suspect to put them in handcuffs or to arrest them, take them to jail, things like that. Those students really like hearing those things. And if you can relate that to whatever your lesson is for the day, it's going to get them interested in it. One thing that you got to watch sometimes with doing that is, the students are really good at getting their teachers off topic sometimes. So if you start down the road of telling them a story about you in the shop or at work or doing something, students are going to want to ask you questions, right? Well, questions can lead to other things. And then before you know it, you got 5 minutes left of class and all you shared with them was a story about something you did at work years ago. So you got to make sure when you do those things that you still are able to stay on topic with your lesson, right? Number 4, instructional procedures. This is where you want to show your direct instruction, where you're going to teach the new skill or concept that you are covering at the time, where you have your guided practice, where you're going to supervise whatever skill the students are going to be practicing. During that guided practice, you want to make sure you are giving some sort of feedback to the student, right? You're going to give them tips, tricks, whatever that's going to help them do whatever they're doing. And then you have that independent practice where you're allowing students to actually apply that skill that they learned, whether that's a project or that they created. If you're welding and they're welding something, or construction and they build something for a grade. An example, demonstrate welding, supervise their practice, assess their safety, give them feedback while they're doing that, and then allow them to do the project on their own, like I said. Number 5, assessment and evaluation. So this is where you're going to measure students' understanding and skill proficiency. This is where, again, you'll use those formative, ongoing, and summative, which is the final type of assessments, right? You're going to include practical demonstrations, quizzes, could be other peer reviews. They can always review each other in certain things, right? Sometimes, I think they said it in the last lesson, sometimes it helps other students to hear what they're doing right or wrong from another student. So try that sometimes in your classroom. Example, observe welding techniques. After you teach them welding techniques, observe them doing it, and then you give them some sort of test or quiz, things like that. And the last, number 6, closure and reflection. This is where you're going to summarize your key points and reinforce learning objectives. Encourage students to reflect on their learning. Connect your lesson to future skills and career applications. So to do that, every time I teach a lesson, I try to make it so that lesson kind of sets me up for my next thing that I'm going to be talking about or teaching them, right? And it goes back to what I said earlier. You're not going to start out, at the beginning of the school year teaching your students the most advanced skills, right? You're going to start out at the beginning, teach them the foundational stuff that they need to learn, and then move on from there. So every lesson you do, try to make it so that's building up to what you're going to do next, and after that, and after that, and after that. And if you need to change things in the future, you have all that in your lessons, so that way you can change. All right, how's everybody doing on the worksheet? Still can't figure out how to get everything up here. There we go. How's everybody doing on the worksheet? Good?
Michael.
I just like giving him a hard time.
Yeah, because talking for 45 minutes isn't like bad enough. Good job.
Oh, I don't mind talking, but I don't have a problem with that. All right, so did anybody, so some of that on that worksheet are things that I discussed or we discussed, and then some of them are, I don't like to say opinionated, but a little bit opinionated, or kind of what you experienced already in your classroom. So I want to go over that worksheet with you guys real quick. So if everybody makes sure they have the worksheet in front of them. Number one, so I want you guys to be able to list the 6 components that I have for an effective lesson plan. Who can give me those 6 components? If you want to write them and don't talk, you can do that.
I can-
Jonathan, I think you raised your
I
hand.
just
You guys
bullet
don't have to
point
raise
them.
your hand.
There we go. You got learning objectives, materials and resources, the intro, introduction, instructional procedures, assessment and evaluation, and closure and reflection.
All right, good, awesome. All right, so number 2, why is lesson planning important? So we discussed this a little bit ago. You guys come up with some good answers. Who can give me a good answer as to why lesson planning is important?
I got alignment with industry standards. Want me to rattle them off?
Yeah, you can just give
organizing-
them a couple.
Yeah, organizing content.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'll take the hand down.
All right, number 3. So let's identify at least 2 ways that you can make your lesson engaging for your students. Who has a couple ways, or at least one way, that you can make your lessons engaging for your students?
Use real world scenarios. Bring
Yep.
it
Awesome.
bring it into what they mean. Like I teach business classes. You start talking about how it affects their bottom line, their pocket, they start becoming interested.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm going to enroll my 12-year-old in your class because she doesn't understand that. What else? Real world experiences. What else? Give me one more at least.
A
I
hook.
was
I'm the teacher that will stand up in front of the class for 3 hours until someone gives me an answer. So
I always like to start with something funny. We were talking about ingredients, so I started with what came first, the chicken or the egg. And we got onto the topic of chickens came from dinosaurs. So now, ever since the beginning of the year, the students like to remind me that the one thing they learned this year is that chickens evolved from dinosaurs.
awesome. Awesome. Good. All right. So now what I want at least somebody to give me is an example of a learning objective that they have come up with. And I don't care if you use it from a past lesson plan you already created or if you want to create a new one. Just give me an example of a learning objective that you can come up with for your field or your program.
I've got a student will be able to solder a copper line together using proper and safe hot work techniques.
Good, good. Clear and concise, detailed, specific. Anybody want to say another one real quick? You got one on hand?
I'll do a lesson on something as simple as shadows because my students often need to have a strong foundation in how things are reflective or light sources or whatever it may be. It gives things form and volume. But if you don't know what light does to an object and the shadows it casts, so it can be semi-mathematical, the angles that you use to show distance and things like that. So but it's fun to do because you put things down on the tabletop and you use, light bulbs and flashlights and it kind of brings them in. And then the next time you see them looking at the wall and studying, well, how a shadow is coming through the window at a certain time of night or day. So
Cool. Do they start doing like shadow puppets on the wall or something?
Yeah, yeah, that's what we do. We get up there with yeah.
Cool. All right. So next question, what challenges do you anticipate when implementing your lesson plan? So who can come up with some challenges that you maybe have ran into or anticipate running into in the future with some of your lesson plans?
I guess sometimes it might be engagement, because some of the lessons that I'm excited about, yeah, they're not. And you have to recognize when your excitement supersedes their interest.
Right.
Nice.
Right. That's what I said earlier. You want to try to make it as engaging as you can with, everything, but all your students are not going to like everything you teach them. There might be a lesson where none of your students really like what you're teaching them. Unfortunately, we have those, and we still have to teach it to the best of our ability, and try to make it as engaging as we can, as fun as we can. But yep, you'll have that. Anybody else have any other challenges?
I put staying on track.
Staying on track.
'Cause it's real easy to get off track when you're talking to teenagers.
Yeah. So I think I talked a little bit earlier about one thing I do with my introduction or hook is I tell a real life story about something that I did in my job. I have a lot of stories over the last 10 years, a lot of gory stories that of course students love. They like when I talk about dead bodies and stuff like that. But sometimes that can make you get off topic, right? They start asking questions, and like I said, you get going down the road, and then all of a sudden it's the end of the period that they're supposed to leave, and then you kind of got nothing covered, right? So you got to make sure even when you do those things that you are still able to stay on track with your lesson plan. Good. What strategies will you use to ensure that they stay engaged and active in your lessons? So what kind of strategies can you use to basically help with implementing?
Some of the lessons that I do over my class, a lot of it's lab based, and all students do their hands-on work at different rates. And so for all my projects, I have to have project A is the main thing everyone does, but then there has to be project B, C, D, E, F, because I'm going to have some kids that'll do all of those projects, and then there's also going to be one that only does just that first project, and that's it. So there has to be that differentiation part.
Absolutely. Steve, I like the small groups idea. I do a lot of group work. Chris, your answer there, relate to their day to day. Can you elaborate on that? I like that answer.
Well, Dwayne mentioned it a minute ago, where if you can show them that something is, you can take the words and bring it to life. This is what it says. This is what your lesson plan is. This is what we're going to try and accomplish. But then if you can then form it to, and this is why it would be important to understanding what you do. I'm just going to go back to Dwayne. Budgets, let's just say budgets in a business sense, right? So if managing your money so you don't blow through it at too quick of a pace. So in my case, I might be teaching in, I don't know, like I said, that lesson on lighting and things like that. But I'll say the next time you stop and pick up a leaf with raindrops on it, take a minute and notice why the water droplet is actually a lens or something like that. So those are two different examples, but I think it's key to try and bring what we're pushing across the table on a piece of paper, how it can affect them, something that they can feel and inhale. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you're saying, and I think what goes along with that is trying to show them things within your lesson that they see outside of school, right? Which is kind of what I think you're going with that leaf scenario there. I think that's really good if they can be doing something outside of school and then it reminds them of the lesson that you kind of just went over with them. Then obviously they're remembering what you're telling them, right? They're learning something from that. So good. That's awesome. And last one, after implementing your lesson, what changes might you consider to improve it? So this isn't any specific lesson, or it can be a specific lesson maybe that you have given already this year. What changes might you consider to improve that lesson?
I think the biggest thing that I did that was impactful is I would reflect and make notes on my lesson plans immediately after that day. Like, this went well, this didn't go well. And then I got to the point where I was asking the students, hey, how did that go today? Did we like this? Did we not like this? But like writing it down or putting it in the actual doc right away so that I knew next time around, do it different, or yeah, this was a great lesson.
Yeah.
I had that same thought, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because I was thinking, in the lesson plans I'm going to prepare, the ones that go into the ring binder, the ones that are organized and sequential, I'm going to add a little, a few lines at the bottom. Some days there may be notes there, some days there may not, but I think it's kind of an important thing to think, okay, like you said, what works, what doesn't. Students may bring up something. I may be teaching about a certain art style, and some kid may bring up something that I hadn't thought of, and you want to jot that down at that point. So I think my lesson plans are going to try and account for that at the bottom, its own little exit ticket, if you will.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of asking your students at the end of a lesson, hey, what did you like? What didn't you like? And even if they tell me that they didn't like something, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to teach it, but that means that, maybe I change how I teach it, right? Make it more engaging, more fun for them somehow. But I really like asking the students, and that goes along with giving your students a say in what they're learning, how they're learning. Things of that nature, right? All right. So,
Hey, Damon, if I can jump in one quick last thing. Now,
yeah.
Sadly, in journalism, and I've been in journalism for almost 40 years, if you watch on TV, the really good ones that ask questions, when they finish an interview, they'll say, "Is there anything that I didn't ask you that maybe you still want to kick into the pot?" And Rachel Maddow does it frequently. There's a lot of really good journalists over the years that will do that. They'll hit them with a lot of questions, and they'll say, "Is there a question that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?" So,
yeah, absolutely. Great. All right. So, finish the worksheet. I want to show you guys. Can you guys still see my slideshow kind of?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I have some additional resources I want to go over with you. The first two real quick, your career tech standards and guidelines. I want to make sure everybody should know where those are at on the website, and professional development workshops and webinars. So I definitely encourage all of you to do professional development, collaborate with other industry partners, go to those workshops or, those webinars to learn. You can never learn too much. And they will always help you. They helped me tremendously when I started. The other thing I want to show you is, let me see if I can get this out of the way. Not that. If I can find it. Thought I already had it up, but I guess not.
What are you looking for?
Oh, your website.
It's the last tab on the right-hand side.
Oh, there it is. All right, perfect. All right, can you guys see this?
I can.
Everybody see it? I can't see you guys, so.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
This is part of the Kent State resources. So I think all of us should know about this by now, because of Melanie. But under one of these tabs is lesson plan resources. So I want to make sure you know that you can get all of these free templates. There are probably hundreds of templates out there in the world for lesson plans, right? You don't have to have a specific template unless your school requires you a specific one. And as far as detail goes, Obviously, it's important to have a lot of detail because it's going to help you in the future. But your details, how much detail you have could depend on what you are teaching as well. But there are so many free templates and examples on here for you guys to look at. The last thing I want to show you is this is what my school requires us to do every Monday, every week. We give what's called learning progression plans. These are our school's form of our teachers providing lesson plans. They are weekly. So we fill these out every Monday and turn them in. And of course, on top of that, we make our own personal lesson plans, but this is what we have to provide to the school. I just want you guys to see it. I'll give you a minute to look at what that is. All right, everybody get a chance to look at that?
So, Damon, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Did you get any problem? Did the administration get any problem from the union about this?
About the learning progression?
Yeah,
Nope.
because our school tried that, but the union give the administration a lot of problems with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've not. Obviously, I'm pretty new, so I'm not.
Oh.
That's probably above my pay grade. But as far as I know, there's been no issues with the union. Mr. Hughes, do you know how long they've been doing these at the Greer Center by any chance?
I'd tell you longer than 8 years,
Okay.
because I
So
have
they've been
some
doing
floating
them.
around here that are 8 years old.
Okay.
It's
So they've
not
been doing them for a
unusual.
while.
It's
And
not
I wouldn't
unusual to
think-
have a district to ask for like lesson plans, even an outline or something like that for the week.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that, coming from a different type of union the last, 12 years of my life, I wouldn't think that that would be a union issue, but I don't know, maybe teaching's different.
Yeah, they did that. So we went back to every Monday we submit our personal lesson plans because they had asked us to do just the same thing that you have here, something similar to this. They asked that we do that, but the union shut it down and said we don't really have to do that. And some people didn't want to do it. For the older teachers who were teaching so long, they don't want to go through another set of stuff trying to change things and So
Yeah.
I just wondering. I'm seeing it now. Another school district is doing the same thing.
Yep. So, Steve, to answer your question of who reviews them, our assistant superintendent reviews all of our learning progressions that we turn in weekly. That's now how much he actually reads all of them. that would be a question for him. I don't know. I've been told that a lot of teachers kind of just change some dates on some stuff and resubmit the same things, don't really fix things like that. I don't know. But I don't know how much he actually reads them, but our assistant superintendent does. Chris, that's a superintendent who is wound tight.
We're about 3 more minutes.
Okay. So the last thing that I would like you guys to do, I'm done boring you for the evening. Hopefully you guys learned something new from me tonight. But in the spreadsheet, there is another link to a quiz that's 10 multiple choice questions. It'll probably take you 50 seconds to do, honestly. It's pretty quick and easy, or it should be, as long as you paid attention for the most part. But if you could fill that quiz out for me, those multiple choice questions, that would be great. Other than that, I don't have anything else for you guys.
Any questions for him?
Any questions?
We're all doing the quiz. We all
Yeah,
we
good.
all want to get 100% tonight.
Yeah.
Mm.
If you don't get them all right, I will email all of your bosses. No, I'm just kidding.
Mr. Beednall,
FERPA.
could you share that form with me?
Share it with you.
It's in the chat.
No, I mean the one that he's screen sharing.
The
Oh, the
micromanaging one on screen.
The learning progression.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can give it to you. You don't have that?
now.
Nice. All right. Mm. While you guys are finishing the quiz, what I will suggest, and I've said it probably a couple times too, is you don't need to reinvent the wheel with the foundations of a lesson plan, right? So if you know peers that are out working in the industry, the same one as you, ask them for their lesson plans. You take their lesson plans and then you build on them and make them better. You differentiate them for your student populations. Like nobody should be starting from scratch. You shouldn't have to start from scratch, right? So, yeah, it's okay to ask. Say, hey, what can you share with me? And hopefully they do. And hopefully in turn you do with each other. There is a shared drive folder out on that resource website that Damon had you go out and look at with like folders associated with each one of your industry careers, but no teachers put much stuff in it. But it's out there for you if you ever want to share stuff in there. It's there. So that was excellent, Damon. That was really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're doing good. I'll give people another minute to finish their quiz.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Don't screw it up.
Yeah, it's
Don't
hard.
screw it
It's
up.
tough.
I kind of want him to share his his results with the class. Like,
I missed one.
you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
He'll
it's all
probably
right.
tell my boss in the morning.
Anybody needs the answers?
I miss one too. Oh wow.
You missed 2, Jonathan. Oh, he's just thinking about getting through the week. He's just thinking, yeah,
That's all right.
yeah. That's all right.
What was Damien's score?
Oh, I got 100. I created it.
All right, good. Good, good.
Yeah, I made it. So that's the first time I've ever used Google Forms, though. So
excellent.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I need to use that because I like how you put it in there. And while you were teaching, while you're going through the process, I was doing the quiz.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was, looking at the worksheet and the quiz, and I was putting in information side by side. So that is something that I've been trying to get into to do these blank quizzes so that you can have it readily available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
so
can always just have the Google form be the input without the questions too. So if you wanted to build it ahead of time and then hand everybody, we can't do it like virtually, but you hand your students the quiz paper and then just have them use a Google form to do the input. You can always do that too.
Oh, okay.
And that keeps it, I don't know, it's some kids do a lot better with physical paper in front of them, and then they just have to go up and choose A, B, C, something like that. So,
Yeah.
and that way you can reuse your forms over and over too. But
Okay.
Yeah, Microsoft has their own version of Forms as well.
okay.
I know over in our land, we're trying to use a little bit more Microsoft. Like at least in my industry, and I know like Steve's industry, as soon as you graduate high school, Google just disappears, and then you're in the land of Microsoft. And so we're trying to get our kids on board with understanding the Microsoft suite of apps and all that fun stuff. And if I thought it was gonna be a huge learning curve with the students, but they're used to Google and everything on Google Docs and is the exact same as Word for the most part. The hardest thing to get them to understand is autosave on Word.
Yes.
You have to click the button because if not, it deletes. But it doesn't delete it; it saves it for 10 days. So it's the very slight learning curve, but
That's
they
good.
appreciate it. That and then student talking to the kids just using Teams instead of Remind 101. Can do a little bit more with it. But
That's awesome. And Jonathan has a very robust lesson plan system. If you're ever interested in seeing a master of Excel spreadsheets with coordinating all those things. It's really good. That's really
That's the
good.
lab projects. That doesn't include the theory stuff.
Sounds like a
That's all
nerd.
right.
And he wrote
I
it when he
had a
was
lot of time
subbing
the
for
last
me
couple
one
of
day.
years.
He wrote the whole semester in one subbing shift for me one day. So he's amazing.
Appreciate it.
Well,
How much
That's
do you
awesome.
charge for to do assignments?
It was super easy. You just got to have the outline in mind.
no, you have a baby on your way. You say the correct. What's your billable per hour? Oh.
That's fine.
All right. So we all good with that lesson? Ready
Hopefully no one failed it.
Oh, you got the power over there. You can tell
Oh,
us.
I haven't looked yet, so.
All right. I'll be honest, I bailed because I just wanted to not be on the naughty list. No, I think I can get it right. All right. So, we ready for our last group? Okay. Is there any questions that you guys have thought of or anything that you need from me before we go into this last group? Registered for summer if you have summer classes yet to take. Some of you.
I have
looking to-
1 credit hour left.
Capstone.
Yes.
Nice.
I graduate May 8th and I still have to come back for 1 credit hour.
Well, yay though. Yay.
Yay. Yes, very
Yay.
big yay.
And that capstone class is asynchronous. So you will probably have it done, Dwayne, in 2 days. So it'll be all good. So you can work ahead. Any
I like
questions?
to get stuff done.
I get it. I get it. I get it. I appreciate that. Anybody have any questions about summer stuff or fall stuff, anything like that?
For the summer,
Yeah.
we doing 1 or 2 classes, can we do? We only have one. Do we have 1 class for summer?
You can take the literacy class. If
You should be able to take 2.
you can take literacy, if you did not take curriculum in curriculum design, you can take that.
No, I did that.
Yeah, I can't remember. And then literacy, and then so Lescott shouldn't probably do capstone because he's still in his very, very first year. So I think it would just be literacy for you, Lescott.
Oh, I can just do literacy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I got an email about signing up for the graduation, and I'm a long ways from that yet.
Okay. So I'm just trying to have, that's fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it then.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Because this is my 5th class I'm doing,
Okay.
Yeah, so okay, that's the only one that I see for summer. The literacy is the only one for summer this year.
Please sign up for that very quickly because
Yeah,
there
I'm
was a
gonna sign up
very
for it.
limited amount of spots. Okay.
Okay.
And if you run into issues with that, send me an email and then I'll talk to Catherine and we'll get you in the course.
Okay.
And Katie is analysis of human resource. Awesome. Getting your grad classes in. Very good. All right. If you have questions, please reach out to me. Don't wait for the last minute though, because some of those courses do get
Mine, Melanie, mine disappeared from my dashboard, one of the courses that I was signed up for, which was the literacy one. I was already signed up for it. It was on my dashboard for a while. Now it's only showing the capstone one that I'm doing in the summer, I believe.
Oh, you're talking about the your Canvas?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens.
Okay.
Yeah, you can still see it in Flashline. It's just like I do that too. Like I pull it off because it's not published because we're
Okay.
still building
Yeah.
courses out. Yeah.
Okay.
Just as long as it's there by the time the class actually starts.
Okay.
So
Yeah, hopefully.
yeah. All right. All right. Okay. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, or if you have other questions, reach out to me and just manage that plan of study. Like I don't want anybody to not be in classes when they're supposed to be in classes because we don't offer all these classes all the time. So I just don't want you to get behind. I want you moving on with your life. Okay. So last group. Woo woo. Jonathan, Steve. I'm ready whenever you are.
That's all Jonathan, right? Are you sharing the PowerPoint?
see
It
it.
should be popping up.
We see
Whatever
it.
it is you have.
You guys see it, but I don't. Oh,
Look
there
at
we
you
go.
with your fade ins.
Now we're getting somewhere. All right. So just like what Damon did, Steve and I had the same exact topic of lesson plans and lesson plan development. So hopefully we're gonna see a lot of the same stuff, but hopefully maybe you get something additional on top of what you guys already know. But lesson plans, the foundation that holds the day together. So
Jonathan's going to try to stay on point, and I'm going to throw us a curveball throughout this.
we're gonna play off
because of what Damon did. But that's okay. That's okay. I still can't see it, Jonathan. Is there something that I've done wrong, or is
it shows that I'm sharing with you guys.
We see
okay?
it.
Okay, well,
Go up to the top nav bar and there's a view, like a little grid next to the smiley face where it says send a reaction.
Mhm.
Next,
Sorry.
click that,
Okay.
change your view, and maybe something funky is going on there.
mm-mm.
Hmm.
Mm-mm. Did you make me like one of the instructors also, maybe?
Everybody has power to view
To do
and
that? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wait. No, that's not it. No, it's all right. I have it anyways. I have it. We're fine. Continue.
Everything's
Continue.
fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
All right. So for the objectives for today, by the end of this lesson, you guys should be able to understand the importance of a lesson plan, be able to design a lesson plan, and know how to continually develop a lesson plan after that lesson's been delivered. So before we get started, we want to go through and have some of you guys share some of your stories, as in how you guys use, or not how you guys use lesson plans, but what was one lesson that you guys had when you were a learner, a student? What was that one thing that has stuck with you all these years? What's one lesson you guys loved as a student? And just go ahead and shout it out whenever whoever wants to share. So Chris said skull stool. Chris, what's that? What's that all about?
All right, it's a little inside baseball, but it was a drawing lesson. As I was in college, Lee Baxter Davis was my teacher, and he set this human skull on a gray metal stool, and he said, "Okay, get started." So we all sat there with our easels and we started drawing. And after about a minute, he said, "Stop." And we said, whoa, we just got started. And he says, "I didn't tell you how long I was going to give you to do it. If I gave you, 2 hours, you'd obviously draw this really lovely skull on a metal stool. But he said, if I only gave you 30 seconds, you should still be able to capture the general shape of the skull with some eye sockets and a nose socket and some teeth and maybe a stool before your 30 seconds were up. But people would be able to look at that and know it's a skull sitting on a stool, even if you had 30 seconds. If you had an hour, you'd get in there and put all the cracks and shading and stuff like that." So his lesson was, there are ways to capture the essence of a drawing in a matter of seconds or minutes or hours or whatever you have. So, but he said, you're not drawing a skull sitting on a stool. He banged the two words together and said, you need to draw the skull stool. And he had a way of whistling through his teeth, which made it extra hilarious every time he said that. And for the rest of our college days, everybody did the Lee Baxter Davis impersonation of skull stool. But that's a lesson that's 40 years old, 42 years old. So,
and it stuck with you all these years.
It's on a mug on my desk, Jonathan. You should see it. You're not drawing a skull. You're not drawing a stool. You're drawing a skull stool.
Very nice.
So I will surrender the mic.
Anybody else want to share a lesson that stuck with them all these years? Anybody else? No? All right, we're gonna move on. The one thing with the lesson plan, like what Damon kind of covered before, is it's keeping us on track as teachers. But the fact that Chris is remembering a lesson from years ago, that's the impact that we're making on these students. It on one side, yes, we're teaching the topic at hand, but the other side too is we're making an impact on these students, and the lesson plan is our guidestone, the North Star, leading us to having that successful lesson. So kind of a group discussion again. I know we kind of just did a little bit ago, but do you currently use lesson plans? Why or why not? And I would like to get everyone's feedback on this, not just one or two people. I'll open it up. I'll be 100% honest. Polaris doesn't require us to write lesson plans. And so I don't write that many like formally drawn out lesson plans. But what I do is a more of like a guide. So I use OneNote. It's kind of like just a notebook, but it's Microsoft's notebook. And I have a day by day, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and then an hour by hour, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'm doing this. 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'm doing this, or whatever the time period is. But in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand or just shout out, do you currently use lesson plans? Why or why not? I promise we're not going to go and tell anyone that you're not using them.
Everybody's afraid to say one way or the other in front of Melanie. They're like, "Oh my God, that's what we're here for." She can't see that we're just.
I always use a lesson plan for the most part, but there's some days. I mean, to be completely honest, I'm teaching my lesson plan, and it is completely bombing with the kids, and I'll just stop and I'll go by the seat of my pants to try to teach them something else to get them engaged. And like Melody said, that's one of the ones I put a big X through, and I throw that lesson plan away for the most part. I mean, I'll come back and try, but I mean, there's some days I start with a lesson plan, but then I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Yeah, I mean, because the lesson plan I thought was going to be great is just not that good for some reason with the kids. So
I have a question, and this question is for you, Melanie. I know we're already a little off topic. Like,
It's okay.
Is there a state requirement that we have to have a lesson plan? Or is it all just school-based?
It is school-based. It's not state required. However, if a parent would come in and say, "Hey, what materials did you use with my student in support of their learning?" You should have that on the ready.
Right.
So, but it doesn't have to be a formalized kind of document or something like that. But to be able to communicate, yeah, I shared this article or I shared this resource or something like that. That could be an issue, and that's not necessarily a state thing. That's probably a Board of Ed thing as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And I get what you're. Okay, so I mean, hi, former career tech ed teacher here. There were times where my lesson plans were phenomenal, like detail, but that didn't happen in the first year of my teaching, right? It happened over time as I realized, oh, my students don't understand this word I'm using, right? Like things like that I would add that content in there. And then if I go and I look at my lesson plan folder from marketing applications, some of my lesson plans are halfway done. Like I got exhausted and I went to bed, and that is perfectly fine too. Then I got smart and I realized, oh, my lesson plans could cover multiple days. Then I got really smart and I started using project-based learning. And then I didn't have to have a daily lesson plan. Okay, so I get that you are crawl, walking, and running. So having an honest conversation about this process is necessary at this point. It's really good.
Yeah, because I feel like obviously, like you come in and observe, we're gonna put together the best lesson plan that we know how to put together at this point in our careers, right? we were talking about observations, the OTES observations. I had to go through that. Jonathan went through it, Chris went through it. I put together lesson plans on those days. Here you go. But on the days that you don't have a formal lesson plan, how are you keeping organized? I kind of want to know that question. What are you using if you don't have a lesson plan? How are you organizing your material? Those types of things. I mean, for the whole group, not Melanie, but for the whole group, like what are you doing to stay organized and stay on point if you don't have a lesson? I mean, I know how I'm doing it, but how are you guys? What are the thoughts? What's happening out there?
So some of my I teach precision machining and manufacturing.
Right.
Some of the projects my kids are doing for either, their own personal projects or even like their credentialing projects. Some of these projects take them days, weeks to finish. And there's a lot of setbacks. It doesn't take much to screw up their project and have to start all the way over. So when that happens, okay, why did this happen? How can we learn off of what you did wrong here to not do it again next time? So there's a lot of times, and my morning's kind of weird. We do half day and full day kids, but for some reason they always throw one quarter day kid into my program.
That is weird.
So I try to take the kids straight to lab. That way we get that in for her. And it's a whole big thing, but there's times we'll go straight to lab and just get started working on their projects that they have to get done to get their 12-point industry credential. And luckily, I'll knock on the table here. My group of juniors that I have this year, it doesn't matter if we're in lab for 3 hours or 45 minutes. They'll work from the time they walk through that door until the time I tell them to clean up. So I've been very lucky with that. My seniors, on the other hand, that were my juniors last year. This is my second year here. They are not that way. They weren't that way last year, and I don't think they'll be that way when they start working. I hate to say that, but they're just not the go-getters. So
yeah.
So I guess,
sure, Mike.
So to answer that, I guess some of my kids are very self-driven.
Okay.
Thank
Cool.
you.
All right. Sorry, Jonathan.
I don't want to take up too much time. But Mike, thanks for that response. So everyone has their reason if they're going to use them or not. But we should be using some sort of guide to drive our instruction.
I agree.
Oops, come on. There we go. And as I just said, it has to do with the structure and the clarity. So a well-structured lesson plan is going to provide a clear roadmap for both the instructors and the learners, ensuring a smooth and focused learning journey. So it's keeping us on track. It's keeping the learners on track. When the random fire alarm goes off halfway through the lesson, we know right where to pick back up. When the kids decide to take us, they ask you one question and then ask you 10 other questions that have nothing to do with the topic at hand, and you decide to buy into that conversation, you know how to check right back to where you're at. Because without that lesson plan, you're just going to be down that other alleyway and go, okay, where do I go? So we need to have it to keep us structured. And it also just keeps us prepared. It boosts our confidence. And when we are prepared and we're confident in what we're teaching, the students can see that. And they know when you're not prepared. They know when you're about to teach a lesson that you have either a little bit of knowledge about or maybe not the greatest amount of knowledge per se, but we have to cover it. Kind of like Damon had mentioned about that too. But when you have that outline, it again, it guides you through that lesson to help you as well as the learners. And my screen does not make note. What's going on?
Yeah, see, I told you it's not just me.
I see essential components. Oh, I did. Now you're back to the importance of a lesson plan.
This thing. All right. There
Now
we
I
go.
see essential. Yep.
All right. So we're gonna see some similar information here that we saw with Damon. So we got 6 main components. So you got the title and objectives. So title being what are we doing? Objectives are going to come from your CTE standards. So they're clearly defining, you need to clearly define what that topic is in the outline and have that measurable learning goal, this specifically written. You want to, in the introduction engagement section, you want to be able to hook the learners in. So having a fun little video, maybe that conversational piece of the real world example of why we're about to cover this, that storytelling piece. Sometimes that might get you down that 20-minute accidental conversation. But if you can limit that initial story to a few minutes, that way you don't tear up all your teaching time, but also keeping your kids the buy-in factor. So you want them to buy into what you're doing. You have your materials and resources, so you want to identify and gather any necessary tools, handouts, technology, stuff that you need to make that lesson successful. Anything that, if you're in a shop class, if you need to go buy materials, that's going to have that under there. If this was my work computer, I could show you what Melanie was talking about earlier with my Excel spreadsheet of every single lab having the whole entire detailed out. It's like the grocery list, if you will, for that class that you're teaching. But just so that way you know what you need before the lesson gets going. Your main content and activities. So it's breaking down the content into manageable steps and creating engaging activities to reinforce the learning. So it's talking more so about as we're teaching it, what are we doing? So step by step. You have the assessment, you need to determine how you'll evaluate the understanding, whether you're giving the students quizzes, talking about it, or practical application. So here we've talked about it, we learned about it in class, now I need to actually go see you do it. And sometimes just that hands-on assessment itself can be a formal assessment too. And then the conclusion, wrapping up that lesson, making notes on the lesson plan if that's what you did. The one example I was saying earlier with what I use, the guide per se, the daily hour by hour or half hour by half hour, just making notes of what you did, things that worked, things that didn't work. So that way, when you go back and look at it the next time, you know what already didn't work. So we're not going to try that again next year if it didn't work this year, because it might not work next year. And that's the joy of teaching that I found, is sometimes it might work with one class and the next year it won't, but maybe 2 years from now it might again. But having those notes, so you know for future reference, it helps with your planning time, the valuable time that we already have. And this is more of just a step by step. So the first step is identifying your learning goals. So what do the learners need to know? You want to develop I can statements, or student will be able to statements. Those are huge, especially with the OTES stuff I found, is you always want to have the student will be able to do X, Y, Z. It has to be super, super detail oriented. Step 2, develop that engaging introduction. So create that hook to capture your students' interest and get them to buy into the lesson. Step 3, design those activities that help supplement the main learning. So we're going to do some, whether it's a lecture or a research assignment, and then that research assignment is going to help the students with their understanding of that topic at hand. Step 4, getting that assessment method. Step 5, concluding on the method on the lesson at hand. And then step 6 is reviewing and adjusting that lesson for future use. All right, if we have time, we'll come back to this, but we have an in-person if we were in person, it'd work a little bit better, but of creating our own lesson plans right here, but we'll come back to this if time permits.
Are you sure? Do you want to, because remember, part of this evaluation is the teaching strategies you're using. So it's okay to not get through all your content and still be able to demonstrate teaching strategies. But it's your class. I just want to remind you of what the rubric looks at.
Well, if it
I
was
think
an
we're
in-person,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
if this was an in-person activity, or if we were all in person, I
Yeah.
think this would work better, but
Okay.
for the sake of
Just-
tonight, let's just keep with what we got.
Okay.
Steve, can you see the screen right now or no?
Are you on tips to avoid disaster?
That's
I'm-
what we're on right now. Yep.
No, I can't see the screen.
Do you
I
have the
don't have-
presentation pulled up on your side?
I do.
We're on slide
um,
9, tips to avoid disaster.
Yeah. So primarily, I think lesson plans, you don't want to be, you don't want to have too much detail, for sure. And what else do you have there? And then certainly, failing to align with the activities of the objectives, you want the lesson plan to match what you're doing in class and be consistent. You also don't want to just ignore the time constraints. And I like particularly, and I want to talk about this a little bit. You don't want it to lack flexibility, meaning that within your lesson plan, you want to have the ability to pivot and move if you need to. And I've been doing something in my class recently that I think has proven successful, where not all of the material that I teach has to be taught in a very specific order. So, for example, my students typically, the way a lesson comes together is they'll read a chapter of a book, and maybe work on the worksheet, and then when they come to class, they can talk about the material before I present it even. So they have some background knowledge. Well, everybody remembers that background knowledge a little bit differently. And if I engage them first, find out what they know, in my mind, it's okay to teach it in whatever order they remembered it in. And it has proven to be more engaging for them rather than forcing them to learn it the order that my lesson plan says to teach it, if that makes any sense at all. And that's been great. And sometimes that conversation just starts with, what do you know about traumatic injuries? Well, I know this, and I know this, and I know this. And as those ideas pop into their heads, we explore them and talk about them in detail. And then we can move forward. I can use the lesson plan as a checks and balances to make sure we didn't miss any points that were important, and then move on with our day that way. I really like the flexibility.
All right. Steve, run slide 10 now. Best
10?
practices. Yeah.
Best practices for effective learning. So there it is. Plan for the flexibility, and that has been great in my class for sure. And then we're always going to align our activities with the learning, and we're going to use diverse teaching methods also to engage the students. I think that's probably easier in some of the classes that have more hands-on stuff. I would imagine, Jonathan, your HVAC class is like that. Certainly in the EMT fire class, we are doing a lot of different things from hands-on to critical thinking, strategies, working in small groups, small teams, all of those kinds of things to figure out how each of these learners are grasping the material. I know we talked a little bit before class how I still have to have a lot of traditional type of assessments, because that's the end product for my students to get their EMT license. They're going to have to take a traditional multiple choice or matching or some type of test like that. That's very difficult. So I still try to engage that a lot, so that way they're prepared. But that doesn't mean that we're not, like I said, doing some hands-on things, some critical thinking skills, stuff like that.
And that last part that Steve was talking about too, with his test taking, that goes with the aligning your activities to your learning objectives. At the end of the day, looking at what your end goal that student is, even if the lesson plan at hand is the one tiny little chunk of the whole entire year, the end of the day, you need to keep the end of the year in mind. What do you want the learner to look like at the very end of the school year? What do they need to know before they can move into year 2 of your program? Or if they're a senior, if year 2 your program, like we do junior year, senior year, what do our students need to know by the time they graduate to make sure they're prepared when they go out into the industry? And that to me always comes into play with planning what we're going to do next and for what reasons we're doing it and stuff of that nature. All right, Steve, we're on slide 11.
So Damon hit on this quite a bit too. When we're refining our lesson plans, we're trying to find that feedback from the students, right? Or feedback from ourselves, or something that I'll certainly do, whether I actively had a lesson plan or not. If I'm teaching a particular subject and things went well or didn't go well, I still take those notes. At some point in time, that is, may turn into a lesson plan, may not turn into a lesson plan. But we have to figure out what they're getting out of it. Are the students getting out of it what we wanted to teach? Are they not? And if they're not, why? And either revise those lesson plans, or certainly develop a lesson plan for a particular subject that we weren't familiar with to begin with.
One part too that I think Melanie had mentioned earlier, and up on the slide it says under seek feedback, talking to the students about identifying areas for improvement. That's been huge to me lately. I don't know if anyone else does that much in their classrooms. I mean, it's one thing to look around at the classroom and see if heads are down, okay, they're not engaged. But to pull students in and have a one-on-one conversation and go, hey, what do you think of this topic? Or, hey, how do you think, or what are your thoughts on how we're covering this right now? Yeah, the way that we want to teach it, that's the way that we want to do it. But is it the way the kids want to learn it? And involving them in that process, that itself engages the students more, because the students see the appreciation and the appreciation that you have for them, but also you're making that connection with the kids of, okay, maybe, yeah, I know the topic at hand, but do I know how you guys want to do this? And if you can give them the option of giving you that input, and if you take that input and actually do something with it, you're going to see a completely other side of your students, if you haven't already. But Steve, you got anything else to fill in?
No, I think that's pretty good. I do have a question. Like, this is getting a little off topic again. So everybody in class, like when you are putting together these lesson plans, when you do have these things, like, are they daily for you? Are they hourly for you? Are they weekly for you? Like, how does that look, or is it all of them? And I'm just kind of asking that for my own benefit. Any thoughts, feedback? What are you guys doing? Damon says, yes. Yes. All of the above. Okay. Jonathan, how about you? What are they for you?
I do it on a weekly basis. So on Fridays, I look at my week ahead and I see what I covered throughout that last week, and then move ahead into that next week. I have a quarterly, I have a year outline that I follow, but it's a very loose outline. It follows chapter by chapter through what I want to cover with the kids throughout the year. But as for the super detailed part, it's more of a weekly basis.
There's a fight in chat right now.
Chris said, I like Melanie's semester-long single lesson plan.
That was her project-based learning. That's what that is.
If you get a semester-long project, it seems to work.
All right. Anyone else want to give their input for how long their lesson plans last, or they're looking at it?
Honestly, it depended on, oh, my bad.
Go.
It depended on what I was teaching. Like there were times where like it was laser focused and I knew the content wasn't really going to be heavy. Like if I was turning on, for example, how to um, teach students return on investment equations, like it was detailed to the hilt because I knew based on prior knowledge that students were going to struggle in these particular areas, and I knew what resources I needed to do. Like it was a daily. Then like I said, there was, if I was doing project-based learning, it was, maybe that unit, but there was maybe smaller lesson plans built into that. So it was all centered around the level of content that I needed in order to be effective with my teaching.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Dwayne, what do you got?
So I teach 5 different classes. I teach electives. I teach 5 different classes every semester. So I kind of do an idea of what I want to cover for the week on Friday. And then I start out and I kind of map out my 46 minutes each day. Not to the detail of knowing what I'm doing every minute by minute, but knowing that I have enough stuff to cover in that period of time. And then I try to also give a little bit of class time for them to do their to do assignments or to do work so that I can bring other kids one-on-one and kind of work with them. That was something that Melanie kind of showed me when she did my observation, that I could use, in essence, not dead time, but downtime for me to work one-on-one with kids that aren't getting their stuff done while the class does their work.
Thanks for that, Dwayne. All right, so up on the screen, I got what challenges do you guys experience? Oh, Damon says, Dwayne, you look like an angel right now. He's got the little light, the aura coming off. So what challenges do you experience with lesson plans? I'll go first. Finding the time to write the things. Find the time in the day to get everything all put together. But does anyone else have any major challenges that they encounter when they're trying to write these lesson plans or put them together and all that fun stuff, or does most of it just come down to the time?
Yeah, I could say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have challenges because I'm teaching construction. I have challenges with the materials in terms of I can't bring a lot of my real world material into the classroom, because if I'm teaching framing, I can't bring in all the 2x4s or 2x6s and stuff like that. So I normally have to, I normally put it in a separate room where I now have to take them out, and let them see what it is, see what a 2x4 dress or rough, and so that they can get a feel of that, because they normally don't go out until way after that into the field to actually see it, So that is some of the challenges that I have, especially explaining the material part. So I have to do a lot of video interventions with them. I have to do a lot of photos, so that they can actually see it. But the actual feel of it, it's kind of difficult. So that's some of the challenges that I have in the class when I'm because a lot of them have never heard of anything pertaining to material, because the new kids we have these days, they're not going out there to do anything. So they are not seeing that. So that's some of my challenges, to get real world material so that they can do. So I have to do a lot more work base going out. So I am having them going out very regular.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for sharing that, Scott.
Yeah.
There's I got a couple of things on this, Jonathan. So I think there's like 2 challenges that for me I run into. One, I'm not as familiar with the material, and building that lesson plan, rather than looking at it as a challenge, I guess, in that point, I've looked at it as an opportunity to research and find out more about that. And then that lesson plan like provides that documentation, and then I learn it. And I think you talked about that earlier, so you can present that information. But the other challenge I'd run to is the complete opposite side of that. When you're talking about something that you're extremely familiar with, that you're passionate about, that you don't need a lesson plan to teach. You don't need anything, right? how to pace it, you know how to put it together, and yet you still need a lesson plan. In those instances, I found if you write that lesson plan for somebody else to teach it with your passion and your knowledge, I think you're going to end up with a quality lesson plan because you're going to have to include all of those points that you want to make as if you were teaching it for somebody else to provide that. And we did that a lot before I retired in the fire service. We would have to put together drills or lessons that some other officer was going to go teach. And it kind of taught me how to put that together because all of those hooks and catchphrases and things and references to real world, you'd have to put that in that lesson plan. And so those are the two challenges that I see with lesson plans is one, I don't know the material, so it gives me an opportunity to research it. And two, if I know it too well, I have to figure out how to still write a good lesson plan. And I write it as if somebody else has to teach my class that day. And I want the same quality instruction because certainly you could just put it together for a sub, but you know.
I like that part. Chris, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I know we're creeping up on the sub plans soon. But I was thinking exactly that, Steve, you know, like if you had to pop in and, you know, deliver something to my kids, I would think that it was something that is more than just a time killer or whatever, that it's something you could probably work through. I mean, I think that would be the best sub plan is not that they're going to take it and deliver it exactly as you would, but they could. I like that. I like what you were saying about the in the fire service, how they'd have to pick up, you know, with your work and your words. That's cool.
Having it detailed enough so someone else could teach it.
Yep.
All right. Steve, we're on slide 13.
So just getting kind of to the end of the slides here and some key takeaways here. We want to make sure that we got clear objectives. Those again are measurable. Something that we want to be able to reflect on at the end of the lesson. Did they learn those objectives that we set forth at the beginning of it? Certainly that engaging introduction. We want to have active learning throughout the process. And then whatever you're using to assess what they've learned, you want to make sure that it's effective. And I think that probably varies for a lot of us depending on what we're teaching. I know very early on, and Melanie was in one of the classes, I was kind of shocked at how poorly the students' vocabulary was. And I know in one of the recent discussion posts I had put in there that, you know, I realized that I was going to have to incorporate vocabulary into every lesson. And not just the industry vocabulary, but Melanie taught me, oh, it's tier 2 vocabulary words that they don't know either, right? So, and that is either one, words that we use in our industry differently than what most people refer to them as, or two, just more complex words that we as adults all know, all understand, all use typically on a daily basis, but the students don't. And if they don't understand that vocabulary, then it doesn't matter how you assess, how they read, what they read, they don't understand what they're reading. And so that for my class, that's part of the effective assessment is these vocabulary words. And there's always vocabulary quizzes and things like that. And then same with the with practice as far as what they're doing and how they're doing that. And I think that that's just different for all of our programs.
Chris, looks like you got your hand up.
Did he have his hand up or was it just not up from before?
There we go. They may have been up earlier. All right. So empowering learners through effective lesson planning, just making sure that you have that high level of engagement, because that's what's going to get the kids to buy in and make your job easier as the teacher in some senses. As soon as they're bought into it, you're just going to be sometimes smooth sailing, but you'll at least be sailing in a direction. But if you're dealing with the students that don't see the purpose for why you're doing it, it can definitely make it more challenging for you and make you want to rip your hair out by the end of the day. But it also helps the students understand what's going on and why we're doing it. It gives you the confidence to teach it. It gives the students the confidence to learn it and see why they're learning it, and it makes that learning meaningful. It giving that reason. Here's why we're doing it. Here's what you're going to be doing with it after you know this, and here's what it's going to stack into. Like I know a lot of the stuff that I cover in my program, the first years, everything scaffolds. Everything starts out at the base layer, and I'm sure all your guys' programs are essentially the same way, where you need to learn this little part in order for this major part to make sense. And if you keep reassuring to the student, here's where this applies, here's the whole picture, but we're looking at the tiny little dot in it right now. But yeah. And then the joy of being a teacher and anything else we do, there's always growth. There's room for growth, and it always continues to grow. I've been saying it since I started teaching, and even like when I was out in the field teaching the new hires, you don't stop. What's the saying? Your learning doesn't stop when you finish school. Every day you have a learning lesson, whether it's, oh, I'm not supposed to put my foot that hard or foot down that hard on the gas pedal when I'm getting on the highway, or it's a new topic at work or a new way to teach a lesson. We're learning something, that professional development piece that Damon had kind of hit on the other during the last lesson. But embrace that feedback from your students, from everyone. Experiment and adapt. Sorry, the cat wants to join us. 5 minutes, got it. Experience and adapt. So like I said, check in with what the kids are thinking, check in with your advisory council, check in with your friends that are still out in the industry and say, hey, what can I do to help teach this? Or what do I need to teach? And your advisory council is a big key player, at least it should be a big key player in driving what you're teaching in your program, because they're the field representatives of your program. And celebrate the success between what you're doing for your students, celebrate the success for what the students are doing and what they're getting out of it, and just having those reflective moments to talk to your kids and go, think back a month ago. Do you remember, did you even know any of this? And some of them are going to go, holy crap, no, I didn't. I've had that conversation quite a few times in the last probably a few weeks, covering over electrical. And they're like, yeah, a month ago, I had no idea what you were talking about. And now you and I can hold a conversation about it. And the fact that kids are saying that too, it means something. So celebrate the success with your kids. I have a couple resources. We already saw Melanie's site with all of the different resources that she has available to us on that. So Melanie, thank you for putting that all together for us. There's a lot of great resources on there. AI is becoming increasingly popular. If you guys haven't used it yet, it's a great feature, great thing that helps us out as teachers. The school introduced, the Polaris admin had showed us about this one AI service called Magic School AI. It's an AI software that is designed specifically for teachers. And I want to show you guys that if my computer wants to work with me. Of course it doesn't. Come on. Bam, bam. Technical difficulties. Please work. Window. Bam. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
You guys can see it. So if you guys haven't seen Magic School before, there's a ton of different tools on here. They recommend stuff for you based off of what you use on their website. You can favorite a couple of them. So I like these little email things. So you can go in and just, I needed a professional email for a family member for this topic, and bam, it'll give you a whole entire super detailed email. But there's just a whole entire, I'm not going to go through each and every one, but list upon different items that are there to help you to make your job easier. So there's definitely a lot of resources available to you guys, or to all of us as teachers. Says Chris commented, there's a lot of resources that help us out. Chris comments that the quizzes that it generates from a YouTube video scrubs questions right out of the YouTube video. So, Chris, want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've done, like this is an artist you need to learn about. Saul Bass and the posters that he designed and the years he operated in and the schools of thought that he's generated, trained, and supported. It's it could be like a short YouTube video, but you can grab that URL and drop it into Magic School and it'll spit out a 10-question quiz, pulling the content straight out of the YouTube video. And copy that into a Google quiz and bang, it's there. So you can ask them to watch the video, and then instead of having to watch the video yourself and stopping every 15 seconds to write out a question, it'll help you with that part of it. I mean, I tailor it and sand off some of the rough edges, but when Tina Bright showed me that the first time, I was like, wow, that's cool. Because I often ask my kids to watch a video to see a certain art style or an artist or a designer or something. So it's handy.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. But yeah, so if you wanted to see any of the links on there, I have the presentation linked to that spreadsheet under assignment 5 on Canvas. But all in all, let's craft some engaging lessons together. Get these kids learning something. So thank you for sitting through this class with Steve and I. Hope you got something out of it, and thank you for doing what you do for all your kiddos.
Excellent job, gentlemen. Excellent job. Any questions for them? So on the resource website, they do have a section on AI tools. Magic is there along with a bunch of other ones. So if you scroll down, it's on the left-hand side. So check those out, especially Brisk and a couple other ones. They're really good. So don't reinvent the wheel. I always say it. Here are my final thoughts, though, because I feel like I want to make it clean in terms of my ideas on lesson plans. There is a little bit of pay me now or pay me later thoughts in terms of lesson plans, right? So I appreciate very much everything you guys said this evening. Spot on, fabulous, and great lessons, both all 3 teams. But the times that I did take a little bit more time to put in like formative questions within my lesson plans, it was impactful for when I taught that lesson again, because I wasn't reinventing the wheel. So if you take, it doesn't have to be every lesson, but if you take time to kind of build in a lesson plan, you will gain some efficiencies and effectiveness by having that lesson plan in the ready for the next time around, if that makes sense. Okay. If you have to divide your time, what I would highly suggest you do is take more time at the beginning of a new unit of learning. Okay. And brainstorm everything that you can that you might want to do with that unit of learning. And then you don't have to be so granular in terms of your individual lesson plans for that unit of learning. But if you take the time to okay, here's how I'm going to pull in the standards. Here's how I'm going to pull in academic standards. Here's how I'm going to pull in professional standards with my technical standards. If you do that on the front end, I think you'll see a lot more effective teaching and management of your time as well. Do you understand what I mean by unit planning? Okay. And I get it. You're going through the year and everything goes together. It's all scaffolded together. I understand all of that. But we can look at our year or our semester and we can bust it into units and then plan around that unit. And then eventually you'll get into individual lesson plans to support that unit learning. Other things to consider, making sure you get all your standards in. It's hard to do that if you're not building out lesson plans. It really is. I mean, we have a very hard job of doing those technical standards, all of them, doing all those professional standards, building in all those academic supports. And the other part of that then is preparing them for web exams, preparing them for industry exams, right? So those can be a part of your lesson plans as well. And then there won't be any surprises when your kids do amazing because you built a plan for them to be amazing. Okay. So these were really great presentations on lesson plans. You will grow with them. You will change them, adapt them, reflect on them, build them out better. But as much as they consume our time, it really is pay me now or pay me later. And so when you get the chance, which I know it's hard, even maybe this summer, you throw down some unit ideas and then you can work through individual lesson plans as the year goes on. Okay, I don't think I got any converts in that conversation, but trust me, it's worth your time. It really is. Okay. And that's the biggest thing when I look at your lesson plans. The biggest thing I don't see are hooks. And I don't see formative questions a lot of times in lesson plans when I come out to observe you guys. So, and yeah, and you're young in your process right now. Wait 5 years. And you're like, did I ask them that question? I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast, right? All right. Anything else for the good of the order? You guys are done. You're spent. I get it. Me too. Excellent job, all 3 groups. Big high fives. That was really well done. Okay, so yeah. Woo. Sometimes it does explosion, not tonight. Okay. Do not forget what?
Exit ticket.
Exit ticket.
Yes. Yeah, those are your points for showing up, interacting. So don't forget to do that. We only have one more time or meeting in a couple weeks. So, and then the next couple weeks in the class, actually, you'll see them. They're going to be like a couple weeks combined. We're at the end. We're getting towards the end there. So, yeah, okay, Cassie, don't be so excited. But yeah, so lots of really good work, but we're getting towards it. Okay. I'm going to hang out for a couple minutes. I'm going to stop recording in case there's any specific questions you have. But I'm going to hang